Saturday, August 18, 2018. Kessinger's mom Barbara Kivett paid Kessinger on Venmo for shoes. 8:04 a.m., Kessinger's dad Dwayne Lee Kessinger called Kessinger and held a 26-minute conversation. Her phone registers in Thornton. 12:40 p.m., Kessinger's mom Barbara Kivett called Kessinger and held a 2-minute conversation. Her phone now registers in North Glen. 1:09 p.m., Kessinger's mom Barbara Kivett left Kessinger a voicemail. Her phone now registers in Denver. Straight after at 1:10 p.m., she called Kessinger again and held a 3-minute conversation. Still in Denver. A short while later she called Kessinger again and held a 1-minute conversation. Kessinger's phone now registers in Aurora. 3:45 p.m., Kessinger texts CBI Kevin Kobach saying, "I remember more. I am with my family tonight though and it's a safe and positive environment for me right now. I can give you time first thing in the morning if you would like." At 4:25 p.m., Kessinger called Anadarko and held a 19-minute conversation. She is still in Aurora. At 4:57 p.m., Kessinger called her dad Dwayne Lee Kessinger and held a 39-minute conversation. Still in Aurora. 5:35 p.m., Anadarko called Kessinger and held a 1-minute conversation. Still in Aurora. 5:35 p.m., Kessinger called Anadarko back and held a 2-minute conversation. She is still in Aurora. 5:36 p.m., Kessinger called Taskman Geosciences and held a 1-minute conversation. Still in Aurora. 5:39 p.m., Kessinger called Taskman Geosciences again and left a voicemail. Still in Aurora. 5:41 p.m., Kessinger called her dad Dwayne Lee Kessinger and held a 21-minute conversation. Still in Aurora. 6:04 p.m., Kessinger called Hazel Heckers and left a voicemail. Still in Aurora. 6:06 p.m., Kessinger called Anadarko and held a 2-minute conversation. She is still in Aurora. 6:09 p.m., Kessinger called Taskman Geosciences and left a voicemail. Still in Aurora. 6:10 p.m., Kessinger called Taskman Geosciences and left a voicemail. Still in Aurora. 6:16 p.m., Kessinger called Hazel Heckers CBI Victim Support and held a 2-minute conversation. Still in Aurora. 6:20 p.m., Kessinger called Jim Gutowski, her friend, and held a 2-minute conversation. She is still in Aurora. 6:46 p.m., Kessinger called Hazel Heckers CBI Victim Support and left a voicemail. Still in Aurora. 6:47 p.m., Jim Gutowski called Kessinger and held a 6-minute conversation. She is still in Aurora. 7:41 p.m., Taskman Geosciences called Kessinger and held a 11-minute conversation. Still in Aurora. 7:53 p.m. Hazel Heckers CBI Victim Support called Kessinger and held a 22-minute conversation. Still in Aurora. 8:15 p.m., Kessinger called her dad Dwayne Lee Kessinger and held a 18-minute conversation. She is still in Aurora. 8:33 p.m., Kessinger called Anadarko and left a voicemail. Still in Aurora. Sunday, August 19, 2018. Kessinger searched the internet on topics related to Amber Frey, the mistress of Scott Peterson. He murdered his wife and unborn child. Her searches included Frey's book deal, her net worth and did people hate Amber Frey. 9:14 a.m., Kessinger called Anadarko and held a 7-minute conversation. In Aurora. 11:23 a.m., Kessinger called her friend Brittany and left a voicemail. In Aurora. 11:26 a.m., Kessinger called her friend Jim Gutowski and left a voicemail. 3 minutes later at 11:29 a.m. she called him again and left another voicemail. At 11:30 a.m. she again called Jim and left yet another voicemail. 12:08 p.m., Kessinger's friend Brittany called Kessinger and held a 65-minute conversation. As soon as this call ends at 1:13 p.m., Kessinger calls Brittany back and held another 3-minute conversation. 5:53 p.m., Kessinger calls Jim Gutowski and held a 1-minute conversation. Her phone now registers in Wheatridge. 7:39 p.m., CBI Kevin Kobach replies to Kessinger's previous text saying, "Okay. I'm out of town until Tuesday. Can you wait until then?" Kessinger said, "Yes, sir." Kobach replied, "Okay. Thanks. You doing okay?" Kessinger said, "I'm all right. Informed my employer of the situation. Getting ready to head to a safe spot tonight in case my name is released tomorrow. APC released me for extended leave. Meet Hazel tomorrow. Trying to be proactive and positive. You guys are releasing his motive in the affidavit tomorrow?" Kobach replied, "Motive is never released. That is media speculation." Kessinger said, "Thank you." Kobach replied, "You're welcome." 8:56 p.m., Jim Gutowski called Kessinger and held a 1-minute conversation. Her phone now registers in Arvada. A few minutes later at 9:03 p.m., Jim called Kessinger again and held a 4-minute conversation. Her phone now registers in Thornton. 9:16 p.m., Kessinger's mom Barbara Kivett called Kessinger and held a 4-minute conversation. Phone now registers in North Glen. 10:12 p.m., Jim Gutowski called Kessinger and held a 5-minute conversation. Registering in Thornton. 10 minutes after that call ended, Jim called Kessinger again at 10:27 p.m. and held a further 6-minute conversation. Less than 30 minutes later, Jim again called Kessinger at 11:01 p.m. and held a further 24-minute conversation. Still in Thornton. Monday, August 20th, 2018. 12:15 a.m., 50 minutes since their last call ended, Kessinger called Jim and held a 7-minute conversation. Her phone now registers in Denver. 8:04 a.m., Taskman Geosciences called Kessinger and held a 16-minute conversation. She is still in Denver. 9:21 a.m., Kessinger called Jim and held a 1-minute conversation. Still in Denver. 9:54 a.m., Jim called Kessinger and held a 22-minute conversation. Still in Denver. 12:48 p.m., Kessinger called her dad Dwayne Lee Kessinger and held a 6-minute conversation. Her phone now registers in Lakewood, Colorado. 12:54 p.m., Kessinger called Anadarko and held a 13-minute conversation. Still in Lakewood. 1:28 p.m., Jim called Kessinger and held a 2-minute conversation. Her phone now registers in Arvada. At 4:37 p.m., Kessinger called Jim and held a 4-minute conversation. Still in Arvada. 5:36 p.m., Detective Baumhover interviewed Nicholas Atkinson, who was accompanied by Nicole Atkinson, his mom. 6:11 p.m., Nicholas Atkinson's interview ended. 6:59 p.m., Kessinger called her dad Dwayne Lee Kessinger and held a 3-minute conversation. Her phone now registers in Denver. 7:02 p.m., Kessinger called her friend Brittany and held a 1-minute conversation. Still in Denver. 7:06 p.m., Kessinger's friend Brittany called Kessinger back and held a 25-minute conversation. Still in Denver. 7:52 p.m., Kessinger's dad Dwayne Lee Kessinger called Kessinger and held a 9-minute conversation. Still in Denver. Detective Baumhover said, "On the 20th of August, 18, along with Michael Rourke and several DDAs, I met with Frank and Frankie Rusek at the Weld County District Attorney's office. While briefly interviewing both Frank and Frankie, I learned the following. Chris stated to Sandra that Shanann was in one of her moods. Nicole Atkinson spoke with Sandra that morning and was concerned about Shanann and the girls' whereabouts. Shanann's phone and iWatch were never turned off and that she charged them on her nightstand each night. The girls' Jack Jill bathroom doors were typically locked at night to keep Bella and Celeste out of the bathroom. Sandra called Chris and left a voice message. She subsequently called him again to check on Shanann. Chris was distant with Shanann's family the 1 week he was in North Carolina. This was the last week of 6 weeks Shanann and the girls were in North Carolina visiting family. Frank stated Chris's relationship with his mother is not as good as the relationship with his dad. Frank confirmed the conflict between Shanann and her mother-in-law, Cindy Watts, regarding Celeste's peanut allergy. Frankie stated that Shanann wore the pants in the family. Frank said Chris was more stern and confrontational with Bella and Celeste while he was visiting in North Carolina the last week of the 6-week trip. Frank installed the hotel-style latch on the front door to prevent Celeste from opening the door. Frank also said a big blue blanket was typically on the couch. Note, this blanket has not been located to date. Frank confirmed the outside garage door opener keypad has never worked. Tuesday, August 21, 2018. 7:31 a.m., Kessinger texts CBI Kevin Kobach saying, "What time would you like to talk today?" Kobach replied, "Good morning. Do you want to meet or talk via phone?" 7:58 a.m., CBI agent Kevin Kobach called Kessinger and held a 28-minute conversation. She is still in Denver. 10 a.m., Chris appeared in court to be formally advised of the charges against him. On August 21, Chris was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, including an additional 1 count per child cited as death of a child who had not yet attained 12 years of age and the defendant was in a position of trust, unlawful termination of a pregnancy, and 3 counts of tampering with a deceased human body.
We're a judge here in Will County, and I'll be the presiding judge in this case. If I could please have the lawyers identify themselves for the record, starting with the prosecution.
Good morning, Your Honor. Michael Rourke on behalf of the people.
Patrick Roach on behalf of the people.
Thank you.
Your Honor, John Walsh on behalf of the defense.
Jim Gerson on behalf of Mr. Watts. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Rourke, did you want to make a record regarding compliance with the Victims' Rights Act?
Yes, Your Honor. We are in compliance with the Victims' Rights Act. Frank Rusick, who is Shanann Watts' father, is present in the courtroom, as is Frankie Rusick, who is Shanann Watts' brother. They are present in the courtroom, and we have advised them of the purpose of today's hearing and what we expect to occur.
Thank you. Mr. Watts, last week I gave you a limited advisement because charges had not been filed. They have now been filed, so I'm going to give you a full advisement. If at any time you have any questions, please let me know. And you're welcome also to certainly consult with your attorneys, okay?
Yes, sir.
So, you do not need to make any statements. Any statements you make can be used against you. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
You have the right to be represented by counsel, and if you're indigent, you have the right to request the appointment of counsel or consult with a public defender before any further proceedings are held, and I see that you've taken advantage of that right. Any plea that you make must be made voluntarily and not the result of undue influence or coercion. You understand?
Yes.
At this point, I have denied your right to bail, given the charges. You can certainly have a conversation shortly about that issue. You have the right to understand the nature of the charges. We'll go over that in a moment. You have the right to a jury trial. You also have the right to demand and receive a preliminary hearing within a reasonable time to determine whether probable cause exists to believe that the offenses charged were committed by you. Do you understand this information? Mr. Watts will explain to you what you have been formally charged with and what the possible penalties are. Count 1 alleges that on or about August 13, 2018, Christopher Lee Watts unlawfully, feloniously, after deliberation, and with the intent to cause the death of a person other than himself, caused the death of Shanann Watts, and why that crime is classified as murder in the first degree, a Class 1 felony. Do you understand? Count 2 alleges murder in the first degree, also a Class 1 felony, and it reads that between and including August 12, 2018 and August 13, 2018, Christopher Lee Watts unlawfully, feloniously, after deliberation, and with the intent to cause the death of a person other than himself, caused the death of Bella Watts, and why you understand. Count 3 alleges murder in the first degree, a Class 1 felony, and specifically it alleges that between and including August 12, 2018 and August 13, 2018, Christopher Lee Watts unlawfully, feloniously after deliberation and with the intent to cause the death of a person other than himself, cause the death of Celeste Watts, subsection A. Do you understand? Count 4 alleges murder in the first degree, a class 1 felony. It alleges that between and including August 12, 2018 and August 13, 2018, Christopher Lee Watts unlawfully, feloniously, and knowingly caused the death of Bella Watts, a child who had not yet attained 12 years of age, and the defendant was in a position of trust with respect to the victims, section F. Do you understand? Count 5 alleges murder in the first degree, a class 1 felony. It alleges that between and including August 12, 2018 and August 13, 2018, Christopher Lee Watts unlawfully, feloniously, and knowingly caused the death of Celeste Watts, a child who had not yet attained 12 years of age, and the defendant was in a position of trust with respect to the victim in subsection F. Do you understand? With regard to these first 5 counts, the minimum sentence that the court could impose if convicted is life imprisonment in the Colorado Department of Corrections, and the maximum death, the sentence is death. Do you understand? Count 6 alleges a class 2 felony of unlawful termination of pregnancy in the first degree. Specifically, it alleges that on or about August 13, 2018, Christopher Lee Watts, with the intent to terminate unlawfully the pregnancy of a woman, namely Shanann Watts, feloniously and unlawfully terminated the pregnancy of the woman. Further, the woman died as a result of the unlawful termination of the pregnancy in violation. Count 7 alleges tampering with a deceased human body, a class 3 felony. Count 8 alleges also tampering with a deceased human body, a class 3 felony in Alexa. And finally, count 9 alleges tampering with a deceased human body, a class 3 felony.
Shanann's father, Frank Rusek Sr., and brother, Frank Rusek Jr., stood alongside prosecutors as they announced the charges.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Shanann's dad. This is her brother. We would like to thank everyone in the Frederick Police Department and all the agencies involved for working so hard to find my daughter, granddaughters, and Nico. Thank you, everyone, for coming out to the candlelight visual and saying all your prayers. They are greatly appreciated. And keep the prayers coming for our family. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
10 a.m., CSAD Yoakum said. On Tuesday, August 21, 2018, at 10 a.m., myself and FSK Henson arrived at 241 to 245 Oak Street in Frederick to process and execute a search warrant for the 2 vehicles which possibly had been used to transport the deceased victims in the case. Present at the impound lot was Detective Baumhover and Officer S. Woollyer from FPD. Scene processing. Truck. In the bed of the truck were affixed toolboxes and fuel tanks. Hose implements, as well as miscellaneous hand tools which included a round point shovel, a square point shovel and a sickle were identified and collected. Also within the bed of the truck was a partially full gas can and fire extinguisher. Located in the front passenger compartment of the truck, a roll of black plastic bags was observed and collected from the front passenger side floorboard. The front driver's seat and front passenger seat were covered with canvas seat covers. From the steering wheel a possible DNA swab was collected. In the rear seat were 2 large plastic bins that contained miscellaneous work materials, safety equipment, personal items, maps, and paperwork. A pair of black rubber boots were located on the floor behind the front passenger seat. Beneath the rear seat were additional miscellaneous tools. Adhesive lifts were collected from the rear seating area and floor. Located in the front passenger side door panel was a green disposable cigarette lighter. Lexus. The interior of the vehicle was relatively clean and uncluttered. In the rear seat passenger area were 2 car seats affixed and secured in place. Girls' clothing and shoes were noted on the floor along with small toys and a stuffed animal. In the rear cargo area of the vehicle were numerous zippered, empty duffel-style bags. Also located in the cargo area were several items of men's clothing, which included a shirt, socks, underwear, jeans, and belt. A pair of newer brown leather boots was also observed and collected. Medical paperwork as well as paperwork collected from the front center console identifying dates and times of travel from Denver International Airport was also collected. All items of evidence collected at the impound facility on Tuesday, August 21 were transferred to Detective Baumhofer at 1:10 p.m. on Tuesday, August 21, 2018. CBI cleared the scene at the Frederick impound lot at 1:30 p.m. on August 21, 2018. 10:16 a.m., Kessinger called her dad Dwayne Lee Kessinger and held a 14-minute conversation. Still in Denver. 12:33 p.m., Kessinger texts CBI Kevin Kobach saying, "Is lunch still a good time for you?" Kobach replied, "In a meeting. It will be a few. How about late afternoon?" Kessinger said, "What time you thinking?" Kobach replied, "I have another meeting at 2. Maybe about 4. Kessinger said, "Okay." Kobach replied, "I'll call you around then." 1:11 p.m. Colorado State Government Caller Center called Kessinger and held a 16-minute conversation. She is still in Denver. 2:36 p.m., Colorado Bureau of Investigation CBI agent Matthew Saylor and agent Tracy Schwartzbauer responded to the Doubletree Hotel located at 910 7th Street, Greeley, to interview Frank Rusek, father of Shanann Watts.
So what can you tell me about Shanann and Chris and their relationship?
He was a great father.
Okay.
I mean, I couldn't ask for a better father for him, for the kids. I mean, honestly, did everything for them. Played with them, bathed them. I couldn't ask for someone better.
Okay.
Husband-wise, same way. Never seen any kind of problems with him. I was out here prior to the 6 weeks she was here. I don't know the exact date before they both went on the vacation with her Thrive company, and watched the kids. There was a little bit of difference in him, but I just took it as being a father. I mean, he was getting a little sterner with the girls. I mean, it was nothing, he was always the quiet type with them. But he started getting a little sterner with them, and I just took it as being a father. Now he's getting a little bit tired of what they're doing, running them all over, so he's just getting stern with them. Never hit him that I know of. It's hard. There's different things that was going on. I mean, he did change his, they were going through this new Thrive stuff that she was selling, and he started getting himself all built up and lost a lot of weight. But he was always a body type person, always took care of his body and all that. So they did come out. Janet came out for 6 weeks with the girls. They were going back and forth from our house to his house, his mother's house.
Okay.
And the little Celeste had allergies to nuts, tree nuts. Very allergic to them. She had 2 EpiPens she had to carry with her. So she told us all, get rid of anything that's got nuts or any, just get it up high enough. Don't throw it away, just get it out, no problem. My wife cleaned the whole house out. I mean, I had to go looking for stuff. She took underneath every cabinet. So she told Chris's parents the same thing. They did go over her house a couple times, and Chris's mom really never got along with Shannon because she took her son away from him. That's how we took it. They didn't come to her wedding, their engagement party. They didn't come to nothing to theirs.
3:47 p.m., a Colorado Bureau of Investigation CBI agent Matthew Saylor and agent Tracy Schwartzbauer responded to the Doubletree Hotel located at 919 7th Street in Greeley to interview Frankie Rusek, brother of Shanann Watts.
We'll just start off with if there's anything that you want to say or have been thinking about or anything that you think we should know.
No, other than I told them, she wasn't sick at all until the day he got there, which I thought was real strange. And he didn't come out to take care of her at all. She was up all night, and I kept checking out her.
So this is in North Carolina?
Yeah.
Okay.
The day he got there, he was acting real standoffish, but we never thought anything, just didn't think anything. I think he didn't feel good, or he was tired from the flight, or, we didn't think anything. He's just, I don't know, he's acting a little weird. Distant, But if we'd have known any of this, like he was talking to someone else, boy, that would have been a whole different another story.
Yeah.
But my sister, she didn't act like anything was wrong until at all. Nothing. Like it was normal, same thing as it always has been.
She never said anything to you about them not getting along?
No, nothing.
Okay. How close were you with her?
Pretty close. She would tell me things like she wouldn't tell my parents.
Right. That's another reason we talk to everybody.
Yeah. And and she's told her friends things she wouldn't tell me. Because she wouldn't want me to worry, and she knew eventually I'd probably tell my dad or mom.
Right.
So, like at the beach when she found out about her lupus or something, it was something going on, and it was like acting up or something. She told me in the elevator, she's like, "Don't tell mom and dad." I was like, "Okay," this was like 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, "Oh, thanks. I feel special.
Right.
Thank you."
3:49 p.m., Kessinger texts CBI Kevin Kobach saying, "Still a go for 4 p.m.?" 3:58 p.m., CBI Kevin Kobach called Kessinger and held a 39-minute conversation. Her phone still registers in Denver. At 4:41 p.m., Kessinger called her dad Dwayne Lee Kessinger and held a 1-minute conversation. Still in Denver. At 4:46 p.m., Kessinger's dad called Kessinger back and held a 15-minute conversation. Still in Denver. 5:12 p.m., Kessinger's sister Stephanie Ray Kessinger called Kessinger and held a 19-minute conversation. Still in Denver. 5:32 p.m., Kessinger called her friend Charlotte Nelson and held a 10-minute conversation. She is still in Denver. 5:43 p.m., Kessinger called her dad Dwayne Lee Kessinger and held a 8-minute conversation. In Denver. 5:51 p.m., Kessinger called her friend Jim Gutowski and held a 1-minute conversation. In Denver. 5:52 p.m., Kessinger called Tyler, a family member, and held a 7-minute conversation. In Denver. 6:01 p.m., Kessinger called a number in Fort Lupton and held a 3-minute conversation. Still in Denver. 6:04 p.m., Kessinger called her dad Dwayne Lee Kessinger and held a 8-minute conversation. In Denver. 6:10 p.m., CBI Kevin Kobach texted Kessinger saying, "6:30 p.m., will you be available? Just got to my office." Kessinger said, "Yes, sir." Kobach replied, "Okay, thanks. Sorry, traffic was terrible." Kessinger said, "It's okay. Did you want to just do this tomorrow? Found a little info from Verizon as well." Kobach replied, "Nope. Calling right now." Kessinger said, "K." 6:27 p.m., Lisa, not sure who, called Kessinger and held a 6-minute conversation. Still in Denver. 6:43 p.m., CBI Kevin Kobach called Kessinger and held a 91-minute conversation. Still in Denver. This is Kessinger's 4th police interview. They have already spoken over an hour between 2 calls on this day that was not recorded.
Today is August 21st, 2018. This is Agent Kevin Kobach from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, placing a phone call to Nicole Kessinger, also known as Nikki, at 720-656-9605. The current time is 6:45 p.m.
Hello?
Hi, Nikki. It's Kevin.
Hi, Kevin.
How are you?
I'm okay.
All right. I'm running a recorder, so you know.
Okay.
I just want you to introduce yourself again for the tape recorder. Just say your legal name for me, and then we'll get started.
Okay. Okay. It's Nicole Lee Kessinger.
And your birthday, Nicole?
July 3rd, 1988.
And you go by Nikki, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
8:26 p.m., Kessinger called her dad Dwayne Lee Kessinger and held a 4-minute conversation. 10 minutes later at 8:36 p.m. she called him again and held a 19-minute conversation. 20 minutes after that call ended she called her dad yet again and held a further 2-minute conversation. Still in Denver. Straight after this at 9:19 p.m. she called Jim Gutowski and held a 1-minute conversation. In Denver. 10:55 p.m., Kessinger called her sister Stephanie Ray Kessinger and held a 1-minute conversation. In Denver. News report on the day.
And this case has stunned us. It's stunned so many of us. And to help us try and understand a little bit more of what's going on here, how it's going to be investigated, former FBI Assistant Director, CNN law enforcement analyst Tom Fuentes is with us. Also with us, our HLN legal analyst, he's a great criminal defense attorney, Joey Jackson, and the author of Till Death Do Us Part, Robbie Ludwig, is with us as well. Tom, let's start with Chris Watts' story that he wants out. He turns around basically, and I'm paraphrasing here, and he sees Shanann had already killed one of their daughters and is strangling another one. You buying that story? Is that even possible?
Well, I think at this point, Mike, the main thing is not so much what he says or whether you buy it or not. It's up to the police to really do as much investigation as they can, especially the forensic part of this, to prove or disprove anything that he says. So right now, the main focus is going to be on obviously what he did to his wife and what he potentially did to the children, how he did it, why he did it, and all of that's important too. But I think right now the main point is going to be to prove forensically that he in fact is responsible for the death of all three.
You know, it's gruesome to talk about. Tom, I'll stay with you since you're on that topic of the investigative side of this. If the little girls were in oil, how hard is it going to be to get any kind of evidence, DNA, that would say it was Chris Watts versus Shanann who may have killed them?
That's a good question. I think I would defer to a forensic scientist on that regard of whether or not the oil would interfere with whatever attempt they're going to do to try to determine that.
Got it. Challenging.
Also,
then.
if I could add one more thing,
yeah.
You have the forensics of the mother as well. Is there any evidence on her hands or clothing or anything else that might show that she did do such a thing to the children?
Got it. Robbie, what do you make of this confession? You read a little bit of that affidavit, his explanation. What do you think's going on here?
Yeah, it sounds like a man who is desperate and trying to save himself. And you got to give it to him, down to the wire, even when he's being confronted. He is trying to save himself, perhaps, from the death penalty. It sounds very unlikely to me that this mother would have harmed her kids. It sounds more likely that she would have wanted to harm him. And here is a man who is really self-centered to the point of being pathologically dangerous. This is a man who basically feels that he can create his own reality and wishes. And that is my first assessment as to what happened here. This is a man who wanted to do-over in life and knew that his wife and family and the child on the way would keep him stuck to a life that he no longer wanted or felt he could handle.
Joey, let's delve in a little bit, kind of picking up on what Tom was talking about on an investigative front. Let's check out a clip from last night's show, Crime and Justice with Ashley Banfield, certified death investigator Joseph Scott Morgan, talking with Ashley, kind of dealing with that evidence. And let's get your take coming out. Here's that.
And explain why the defense submitted a motion to request DNA be extracted from the necks of the children and under the fingernails of his deceased wife. Does this now make sense to you?
Yeah, I can see how they would want to go down that road from an evidentiary standpoint. I think that it's going to be very difficult, though, if these children had been submerged in oil, as they say that they were, at least that's been implied, that you would be able to recover anything that's usable from out of that environment.
All right, Joey, why would the defense go for that, want that submitted?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, Joseph Scott is one of the best there is. And so, you know, look, if it's going to be difficult to get that forensic information, I think you're going to have to rely upon other things, which I'll get to, common sense and good judgment, which we always preach to juries as defense attorneys and as I was a former prosecutor. On the issue of why you want the information is it goes to establish the DNA around the throat. I mean, the critical question of who might be responsible. In the event that you're choking someone, you would think that there would be some transference of DNA. There'd be some forensic evidence. There might be something under the fingernails, and cases are won and lost based upon evidence. But back to the issue of common sense and good judgment. Tom Fuentes talked about the issue of forensics. Every case, of course, turns on that. Jurors expect that, right? We're in the day of CSI Miami, right? But here's the reality. The reality is that if you don't have that, you turn to jurors and you ask them to listen to their inner thoughts and their common sense. What mother, right, would engage in this reaction? So you get, you know, great psychotherapists like Dr. Ravi to take you through that. No mother would. Children are their pride and joy. Number two, was this be the normal reaction that someone has? So you're killing the children after this emotional discussion, and the wife that is according to you. And what ends up happening is you now kill the wife. You don't try to rip her away. You don't call the police right away. Number three, you then take it upon yourself to dispose of everyone's body when you had nothing to do with the killing of the children, as opposed to explain the circumstances. It just defies common sense, logic, and good judgment, in my view, and I think a prosecutor will make hay out of this that we call circumstantial evidence. Not forensic, but circumstantial, equally compelling.
All right. Well, from what you're saying, and you're a great criminal defense attorney, defense has an uphill battle in this one. We'll get this story more as we delve into the case, the investigative side.
As we all wait to understand why these lives were taken, we are hearing tonight a new perspective from a criminologist. Good evening. I'm Shannon Ogden.
And I'm Ann Trujillo. Denver 7's Jacqueline Allen spoke to that expert about this tragedy and what we could see from Chris Watts' defense.
I think he had a vision of another life with this other woman, carefree, no responsibilities.
Dr. Denise Mauder has some theories about why a man who seemed so normal could change so completely.
There's some secrets there, I'm afraid.
She's worked with thousands of victims of family violence as a former prosecutor and MSU Denver criminology professor. Case studies of fathers killing their children show it's most often out of rage or revenge against the spouse, but this case is rare.
And I was pretty surprised that he didn't kill himself too. Oftentimes it goes in a pattern.
If you're out there, just come back.
The fact Chris Watts went on camera to plead for his children's lives after he knew they were dead is, to her, a sign he planned to blame an intruder, play victim, start a new life. But the investigation quickly centered on him. Court records show he was having an affair with a coworker.
And I think he thought he could just keep it up and it would be a whodunit. Because where he put them, I don't know if we would ever found them. Not for a very, very long time.
He eventually told police a news story, and Mauder says it's no surprise to her he's blaming his wife.
When you saw that his defense was she hurt the children, what did you think?
Oh, absolutely did not believe it. And when he said she was the one strangling the children, I knew right then he was the one who's strangling the children, because he can give us all the details of what he said she did because he was doing it himself.
Based on her experience, she says he's probably convinced himself he's telling the truth and will walk into court with that attitude.
But it's going to be tough on the family to hear the lies. It's going to be hard for a jury. It's going to be hard for the public to really understand, because there is no understanding this. There is no understanding it.
Jacqueline Allen, Denver 7.
Part 20, coming soon.